The FBI is the most sophisticated law enforcement agency in the world, pursuing the most dangerous criminals. When a mysterious man robs a bank, setting off a twisted and deadly chain of events.
When the device detonated, you could feel the percussion from it, and pieces just went everywhere.
The Bureau mobilizes.
The person responsible was a puppet master. They pull the strings and they tell you what they want you to do, and this is how you're going to do it.
This crime gets more and more bizarre as time goes on.
FBI. Criminal Pursuit. In the small, mid-Atlantic town of Erie, Pennsylvania, an oddly dressed man carrying a cane calmly enters a bank.
It was noticeable when he entered the bank that he had some type of, it was described as a box protruding from his chest area, covered with a shirt.
Thank you.
He approaches the teller and passes her a note.
He seemed very calm, walked up to the teller, handed her a note, demanding money.
The note orders the teller to hand over $250,000 and claims the heavy, box-like device around the man's neck is a bomb.
I don't have a lot of time.
It also warns that she has only 15 minutes to comply.
She'll be here in a minute.
The robber remains oddly casual, even grabbing a lollipop while he waits.
The bank's surveillance video portrayed him, or he appeared to be, relatively calm.
Well, we don't have that much money.
The teller informs the man there is no way to get into the vault at that time.
Right now.
Okay.
Instead, she hands over a bag with more than $8,000 in cash.
You have a good day.
He exited the bank and attempted to leave. At that time, however, a bank patron, of course, saw what was going on and followed him out of the bank and alerted police to the bank robbery.
Okay, he's driving
As the
off.
customer watches, the robber hops into his Geo Metro. He refers to what looks like several pages of notes.
He's driving off.
He then drives a short distance and retrieves another note from under a rock.
He had gotten out of his car and got what appeared to be a note. He got back in the car and two state troopers actually stopped him. And that's when everything happened.
Pennsylvania state troopers, responding to the 911 call, pull the car over and identify the robber as 46-year-old Brian Wells. As the troopers pull Wells from his car, he exposes the bulky contraption under his t-shirt. The troopers have no idea how many people the bomb is designed to kill. They quickly evacuate nearby businesses and establish a perimeter, pushing onlookers and news crews out of the way.
Just moments ago, a trooper warned us that we were in the blast radius.
They cuff Wells, call the Erie bomb squad, and retreat to a safe distance.
What do you want those state troopers to do? I mean, in essence, Brian was putting his life along with everyone else's lives in danger.
Police don't know whether this is a terrorist attack or a bank robbery gone horribly wrong. Either way, authorities need help from the one federal agency that can handle it all: the FBI. Special Agent Gerald Clark is notified at the FBI's nearby resident agency. He rushes to the scene. An 8-year veteran of investigating bank robberies, Agent Clark takes the bomb threat seriously.
You have to believe in your mind that the potential for that device to be real is there.
As agents wait for the bomb squad to arrive, Brian Wells starts talking. And he's telling an outlandish story. He claims that he's a pizza delivery man and that he's a victim of a sadistic game.
Mr. Wells advised that he worked at Mamma Mia's Pizzeria in Erie on Peach Street, that a call had been placed for him to deliver 2 pizzas to 8631 Peach.
Wells tells authorities that he made the delivery to a nearby transmission tower site when a stranger took him hostage.
Mr. Wells advised the police that an African American had met him at the tower site location where he was to deliver the pizzas, that this individual then fired a weapon. Mr. Wells immediately fell to the ground, and that this device was placed around his neck, and he was advised to rob the bank.
I'm gonna go to the truck.
He kept indicating, I don't have a lot of time, I don't have a lot of time. How much time he had, we did not know.
The robber's relative calm seems odd for a man whose life is supposedly ticking away with each minute.
I've learned over the years never to try to determine what any criminal should look like or be like or act like, but Mr. Wells maintained a calmness that I felt was strange, according to the situation.
With the bomb squad just moments away, Wells asks a trooper to call his employer to let him know where he's at. Suddenly, the device starts beeping. It accelerates, and for the first time, Brian Wells becomes visibly nervous.
I think Mr. Wells thought that the device was not real, and maybe during the last few seconds, and maybe through that beeping, began to believe that the device was actually active.
At 3:18 p.m., as police stand guard, the bomb explodes.
When the device detonated, you could feel the percussion from it, and you could hear different items flying through the air and hitting the ground.
The man was sitting there as he was since about 3 o'clock when all of a sudden a loud explosion and he flipped onto his back and the state police troopers scrambled.
The explosion blasts a fist-sized hole in Wells's chest. He falls back and takes one last breath.
You're watching it and you're thinking, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened.
Just minutes later, the bomb squad arrives. The threat isn't over. They check his car to see if there's another bomb.
One of the officers yelled out, secondary, secondary, which indicates there could be a second device that might detonate.
Once the perimeter is secure, the bomb squad examines Brian Wells. It quickly becomes evident that there was nothing anyone could have done to save him.
Basically, the device was devised in such a maniacal manner that anyone from the bomb squad who took a look at that was going to be unable to get that device off of Mr. Wells.
Was Brian Wells acting on his own? Or was he really a victim of a deadly plot, as he claimed just minutes before his death? agents begin searching Wells's car for evidence and find his 2-foot-long cane. Closer inspection reveals something bizarre.
What appeared to be a cane was actually a homemade shotgun, constructed of various pieces of metal and wood.
And there's something else surprising in the car.
Mr. Wells had a set of notes in his car that were entitled Bomb Hostage, and it gave Mr. Wells a list of things he was to do.
The notes claim the only way Wells could defuse and remove the bomb was to complete a complex scavenger hunt. The notes instruct Wells to first rob the bank, then gather clues at 4 separate locations. The twist to the deadly game? He had only 55 minutes to complete the tasks.
He was told to follow a list of instructions which would lead him to various points around Erie, the end result being he would receive instructions to remove the device from his neck.
The evidence and the crime itself are bizarre, and agents have more questions than answers.
Are we looking at multiple people? Are we looking at one individual? Is this a bank robbery? Were there other motives?
Supervisory Special Agent Mary Ellen O'Toole, a seasoned profiler at the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit at Quantico, is assigned to the case. Right away, she's certain of one thing.
This had to be a conspiracy. This could not have been the work of just one person.
Late August 2003. Agents in Erie, Pennsylvania are shocked when pizza delivery man Brian Wells robs a bank.
You have a good day.
Then, he's publicly blown up by a bomb strapped around his neck.
It's just never happened before, and when it did happen, it was completely surreal.
Just minutes before his death, Brian insisted he had been kidnapped and forced to commit the robbery,
You have a good day.
and that he was the victim of a sadistic game. While searching Brian's car, agents uncover a strange set of notes detailing a scavenger hunt that Brian must complete in 55 minutes. His life.
Law enforcement immediately took the notes obtained from Mr. Wells's vehicle and began to follow the instructions that Mr. Wells had.
Investigators try to complete the twisted game that Brian Wells was playing. At the 4th stop, the trail abruptly ends. It is unclear where Wells was supposed to go next, and if his life would have been spared. The notes are sent to Supervisory Special Agent Mary Ellen O'Toole, a seasoned profiler at the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit. She begins analyzing them and is immediately struck by the complexity of the plan.
This is not a typical bank robbery under any stretch of the imagination. This was well over the top. So this was all very unnecessary to a successful bank robbery.
She also senses that the note's author is on a sadistic power trip.
The author wrote down every detail. Do this, and then do this, and then do this. So there was a lot of control going on in these notes.
It definitely seemed like the individual or individuals responsible for this were into some gamesmanship.
The FBI forms a task force with the ATF and Pennsylvania State Police. The first question they need answered: who is Brian Wells? Friends and family reveal that Brian Wells was a high school dropout. He had worked as a pizza delivery man for 30 years, the last 10 on the lunch shift at Mamma Mia's Pizzeria.
It just appeared that Mr. Wells was a simple man. He lived by himself. He had a few friends. He was an individual that for the most part, stayed to himself.
Brian's landlord, Linda Payne, describes him as a quiet tenant who would help her with chores around the house.
Hey, Brian.
Brian would never make a bomb. He didn't like violent things. Even the gun, the fact that he was carrying a gun was surprising because he didn't like guns.
Agents sweep Brian's home for any clues about the mysterious crime. The only thing they find is a spiral notebook with a list of names and numbers. They notice the name Ken Barnes, as well as 2 numbers for known prostitutes. Could the prostitutes have introduced Brian to a criminal element?
Right away, when you have an individual who's frequented prostitutes, it now adds a whole new dimension to the investigation because you need to know, who might have met Brian through them, and it just opened the whole case up to a large number of people.
Investigators also begin retracing Brian's final steps and visit his workplace, Mamma Mia's Pizzeria, for leads.
I heard to ask you a few questions about Brian Wells.
The employees reveal that on August 28th, the day Brian died, a telephone order for 2 large pizzas came in at 1:30 p.m. 17 minutes later, Brian left with a delivery bound for 8631 Peach Street. Investigators immediately head to that address. They arrive and find themselves at a long dirt driveway that leads to a TV transmission tower, exactly where Brian Wells told authorities he had been taken hostage. Investigators discover evidence that proves Brian was there.
The state police did recover and did make casts and take photographs of various footprints and tire impressions left at the scene.
Caller ID records reveal that the pizza order was placed from a payphone at a nearby gas station. By now, investigators strongly doubt Brian Wells had the technical expertise to build the bomb and plan the robbery on his own. But then, who was the mastermind behind the deadly game? Field agents turn once again to FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole for insight. She and her colleagues carefully analyzed the surveillance images of Brian robbing the bank.
He walks in, he stands in line for a little bit. He has this concoction around his neck, which would draw attention to him. It's almost like he's having fun. It's almost like, hey, this is a game and I'm playing a role.
Agent O'Toole suspects that Brian Wells may have been following the directions of a powerful ringleader who was likely watching the crime unfold from the sidelines.
The person responsible was a puppet master. They pull the strings and they tell you what they want you to do, and this is how you're going to do it. They would not have let Brian Wells go into the bank that day without having some way to monitor what was going on.
Agent O'Toole needs to get inside the mind of this twisted killer. She scrutinizes the intricate notes that detail instructions for the robbery and disarming the bomb.
There were many more motives to this, with bank robbery maybe being even pretty low down on the motivation list.
The FBI is slowly pulling together a profile of Brian's killer. But they still don't know the answer to the most pressing question. Who is the puppet master behind this deadly plot? The one they've deemed the collar bomber.
If you place the bomb on Brian's neck, knowing full well that he can never get out of it, and knowing that it's going to explode and it's going to kill him, it's very grandiose. It's very narcissistic. Those are traits of a psychopath.
It's been 3 days since pizza delivery man Brian Wells robbed an Erie, Pennsylvania bank with a bomb around his neck. then died just minutes later. The FBI is searching for the mastermind behind the plot and is convinced agents are playing cat and mouse with an unpredictable psychopath.
Psychopathy is a personality disorder, and we know these individuals colloquially as people without a conscience. It's no guilt or remorse for their actions.
Now FBI and ATF bomb experts work to reconstruct the collar bomb that killed Brian Wells. The bomb hung from a triple-banded collar and featured 4 keyhole locks and a 3-number combination dial. It was constructed of a mishmash of untraceable household items, including 2 kitchen timers that were likely collected over a period of years. Its maker chose a simple yet effective explosive component: shotgun shell powder encased in plastic tubes.
According to our explosive experts, this was a one-of-a-kind device devised by an individual who may have made only one his whole life.
The deadly bomb was also equipped with trick wires wrapped around it, but not connected to the explosive.
Knowing all the red herrings and the efforts that were utilized by the maker of this device, there is not a way, in our estimation, that that device could have been taken off of Mr. Wells prior to detonation.
3 weeks after the explosion, agents still have nothing that points to the mastermind behind this vicious crime, until Pennsylvania State Police receive a disturbing phone call.
911 emergency.
At 8645 P Street, in the garage, there is a frozen body. It's in the freezer in the garage.
The call is from William Rothstein, whose backyard extends to the transmission tower where Wells made his last pizza delivery. Rothstein tells them he has a body in his freezer and that it's the boyfriend of his former fiancée, a woman named Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong. Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong is a familiar name to the investigators because she's been linked to the deaths of several men.
Marjorie Diehl did have a reputation with local law enforcement due to the fact that she had been involved in murder cases prior to this one.
In 1984, Marjorie was charged with shooting her boyfriend 6 times with a .38 caliber pistol. She testified she killed him in self-defense and was acquitted of all charges. Now, William Rothstein is claiming that Marjorie shot her new boyfriend while he was sleeping, then offered Rothstein $2,000 to get rid of the body and weapon.
Mr. Rothstein went to the police because he was being pressured by Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong to dispose of the body that was in the freezer. Their plan was to take the body, cut it up, put it in an ice chipper, and then distribute parts of the body throughout the county.
But the idea of chopping up a corpse is too much for William. And he says the stress of hiding Marjorie's secret is making him suicidal. He cooperates with police and agrees to show them the body.
It was roughly from here, and it was back against there, to like about here. I dumped hydrogen peroxide here to get rid of any evidence of blood. And there were, I think, blood spots maybe on the wall. I think she indicated they might have been there when she had blood on her hands.
They find the body in the freezer and a suicide note. Agents read the note and are stunned at a bizarre disclaimer that references the collar bombing and Brian Wells. It claims this has nothing to do with the Wells case.
Investigators look at that note and immediately think, now that's an odd thing to write in a suicide note, specifically listed as the first thing in the note.
Why did you think that you put in there about it wasn't related to Wells?
so you wouldn't go off hog wild saying, oh, this has to do with the Wells, you know, and then be more in the newspaper and everything else.
Erie PD immediately contacts the FBI about the strange note. Investigators make another suspicious find at Rothstein's home.
Where is the shotgun shells? Scattered around.
Unopened shotgun shells, similar to the ones used to fuel the collar bomb.
There's no coincidence in homicide, and so when investigators see that, they'd immediately raise the red flag. And you have to address it, and you have to look at it.
Agents wonder if William Rothstein could be the sadistic mastermind behind the collar bomb plot. They refer to the profile of the bomb maker developed by FBI behavioral analysts.
We thought that their knowledge of making a bomb and making a shotgun probably indicated that they were a shop instructor like in a high school or a vocational school. This is someone who had experience putting pieces of things together and coming up with an end product.
As it turns out, William Rothstein is a dead ringer for the collar bomber's profile. He works as a part-time high school shop teacher, coaches a chess team, and sidelines as an electrician.
The profile that the behavioral analysis unit and Dr. Mary Ellen O'Toole had designed was exactly that of the personality exhibited by William Rothstein.
Special Agent Clark decides to question Rothstein directly about where he was the day of the bank robbery, but the interview goes nowhere.
He had an alibi, so he claimed, and he stated that that alibi could be confirmed by Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong.
But the infamous Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong has no interest in helping out William Rothstein. The day after he's questioned, Marjorie is arrested for the murder of her boyfriend. As she is led into county jail, she makes a shocking outburst to reporters.
Rothstein is a filthy liar. Rothstein should be charged with the murder of Brian Wells and a lot of other charges.
Investigators want to question Marjorie. But before they can, a judge tires of her frequent outbursts and bizarre behavior and orders she be moved to a state mental institution for psychiatric evaluation. There, she is off limits to the FBI.
Investigators really wanted to speak to Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong, but due to the situation, we were unable, and that was frustrating.
Investigators are certain that Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong and William Rothstein are linked to the collar bomb conspiracy that killed Brian Wells. But a gut feeling isn't enough to unravel this mystery.
At that point, we believed they were involved, but what you know and what you can prove are two different things.
June 2004. For 10 months, the FBI, ATF, and police have been trying to find the collar bomber who killed pizza delivery man Brian Wells. Their prime suspect, William Rothstein, is cooperating with authorities about the murder of Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong's boyfriend, whose body was found in his freezer. But Rothstein insists that neither he nor Diehl-Armstrong is linked to Brian Wells. The stakes are raised when agents learn that Rothstein has lymphoma.
We went to the hospital in Erie and attempted to interview Bill Rothstein. He was dying of cancer.
But even at death's door, Rothstein remains mum.
Mr. Rothstein continued to deny his involvement, so at that time, the interview was terminated. Within weeks of that interview with Mr. Rothstein, he was dead. It was very frustrating when Bill Rothstein died because I felt he took an extreme amount of information with him.
Six months later, faced with overwhelming evidence that she murdered her boyfriend, Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong pleads guilty and is sentenced to 20 years. In state prison, she is no longer outside the reach of the FBI. But despite numerous interviews, she refuses to reveal anything that connects her or William Rothstein to the bombing. Investigators need a break, and get a big one when the wife of a local locksmith comes forward.
One of the tips was that Mr. Rothstein had entered a locksmith business here in Erie in June, the June prior to the incident, looking for a certain type of lock.
I have a few other locks here. Did you want to try?
She tells investigators that Rothstein was looking for a padlock with a rotating combination.
That's not what I'm looking
The same type of lock used on the collar bomb. Agents are getting closer to the truth, and Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong knows that if she's linked to the crime, she may never get out of jail. A few months later, she contacts the FBI and says she has new information regarding the Brian Wells case. But she has a demand.
Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong advised that she did have some information about the Brian Wells case, but would not discuss that unless she was transferred to a facility closer to Erie.
The FBI agrees to play along and makes arrangements for her transfer. On July 5th, Special Agent Clark and ATF agent Jason Wick interview her. She claims William Rothstein was the mastermind behind the collar bomb plot and had approached her just prior to the bank robbery.
Bill Rothstein had come to Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong asking if she could provide kitchen timers. Those were vital because nobody at the time knew what kind of timers we were even looking for.
Marjorie also reveals that she murdered her boyfriend because he threatened to rat about the bank robbery plot. Then, Marjorie stirs the pot a little more by bringing up a new person's name, someone she claims robbed her.
Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong advised that an individual named Kenneth Barnes knew that she carried large sums of money, and that Ken Barnes and some of his friends one evening went through the window and robbed her of the money.
The name Ken Barnes rings a bell for Special Agent Clark. He remembers it from the spiral notebook found in Brian Wells's house.
Just the connection with her knowing Ken Barnes and Ken Barnes' name having come up being in Brian Wells's address book, now we have Ken Barnes being mentioned on both ends.
Agents need to figure out how Ken Barnes, Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong, William Rothstein, and Brian Wells are linked. They re-interview one of the prostitutes in Wells's notebook and discover she and Wells have an intimate and illegal connection with Ken Barnes.
Wells would drive Jessica to Ken Barnes' residence. They would consummate a sex act. Brian Wells would pay Jessica for the sex act, and that money would go to Ken Barnes to purchase crack cocaine.
Agents question Barnes, but he claims he's merely a fishing buddy of Marjorie's and has no knowledge of what happened to Brian Wells.
Maybe she's angry with you about, or just fishing buddies, you say?
Investigators turn up the heat. On March 9th, 2006, they arrest Ken Barnes on charges of crack cocaine distribution. They question him until he finally breaks and reveals that not only was he part of the complicated collar bomb scheme, he knows the motive and the true mastermind. According to Barnes, the plot began when Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong asked him to murder her father. She was angry that her dad was giving away her inheritance.
Ken Barnes stated that Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong had asked him if he would kill her father.
I need you to help me take out my dad.
He claimed that he would kill her father, but it would cost a lot of money.
According to Ken Barnes, Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong orchestrated the bank robbery to get the money to pay him for the hit. William Rothstein was enlisted to build the bomb, and Marjorie and Ken created the sadistic scavenger hunt to throw off investigators. In his final interview with agents, Barnes takes them on a ride-along, pinpointing key locations.
He took us to the parking space where he and Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong sat while the bank was being robbed, and illustrated to us that they used a set of binoculars, that they both took turns watching Brian Wells as he was exiting the bank.
Investigators are now convinced that Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong, not William Rothstein, was the mastermind running the show.
Marjorie was very adept at identifying men that she could manipulate and control, and that would do things for her, and that would do her bidding. And even if those things involved breaking the law in a very extreme way.
Agents prepare to bring an indictment against Diehl-Armstrong for the collar bomb robbery. They are close to solving the case, but one critical question still lingers. Was Brian Wells a victim, or was he a willing conspirator in the crime?
There was nothing in his background to indicate that he was a violent offender. If anything, people sort of took advantage of Brian in life, not the other way around.
February 10th, 2006. Ken Barnes has confessed to investigators that he helped Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong plan the bank robbery conspiracy that eventually killed Brian Wells. Now, the FBI tells Diehl-Armstrong that they have enough evidence to bring an indictment against her. Diehl-Armstrong admits part of Ken's story is true. She agrees to drive with agents around Erie to point out where she was during the robbery. But she has a different spin on what actually happened.
Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong was very cautious on what she would say. So she'd state, I might have been here or I might have been there, but every place that she said, she stated she was there not knowing what was going on.
She takes agents to the exact locations that Ken Barnes took them, but claims William Rothstein was really in control, instructing them on where to be during the bank robbery.
She was perfectly consistent with Ken Barnes, down to she picked the exact same parking space that Ken Barnes had picked, which was their vantage point while watching the bank robbery.
At the last stop, Marjorie refuses to provide any further information without receiving immunity. But this time, agents refuse to play the game.
There was not going to be a deal made with Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong.
In 2007, a grand jury indicts Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong and Ken Barnes for charges of conspiracy. They do not indict the deceased, William Rothstein, but list him as a co-conspirator in the case. In a shocking twist, the grand jury also lists another co-conspirator, Brian Wells.
You've got to be kidding me. This guy knew he was going to wear a live bomb and go rob a bank. He knew that there was a chance he was going to die. This is even crazier. This crime gets more and more bizarre as time goes on.
FBI agents have concluded that Brian Wells was part of the plot all along. and had met repeatedly with Diehl-Armstrong and her cohorts to rehearse the scheme.
Mr. Wells was present for a discussion about this bank robbery at Ken Barnes' house at one point with other individuals, to include Marjorie Diehl and Ken Barnes.
They believe that Brian Wells owed money to a local drug dealer and agreed to participate in the bank robbery to pay him back.
All right, this is the device, this is the pin.
Authorities say Wells even sat for fittings of the collar bomb, under the belief that the device was fake.
How does that feel right there? Good? Feels all right.
But on the morning of the robbery, Brian Wells was double-crossed by his friends.
Don't worry about a thing, buddy.
On the day of the incident, Ken Barnes stated that Brian Wells drove to the back of the tower site and got out of the vehicle. He was shown the device that they were going to put on.
Wait, what's with those pieces?
They gotta believe it's real.
And Brian Wells either lost his nerve or decided that that looked too real and did not want to participate.
No, I'm not doing it.
According to the testimony of Ken Barnes, Wells tried to run away, but was held down.
You're not going anywhere. Relax.
The bomb was strapped to his neck, and he stuck with the plot until the bitter end.
I don't think that device was ever intended to be taken off of Brian Wells. I think that they knew certain people were witnesses to this event and that some people they did not want to still be around.
In 2010, Ken Barnes is convicted of conspiracy to commit armed robbery. He's sentenced to 45 years in federal prison. Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong finally loses the game and is convicted on charges of armed bank robbery, conspiracy, and using a destructive device. She maintains her innocence.
I'm innocent.
Marjorie Diehl is a rare individual. She could commit crimes and not think about the consequences, and that's alarming.
Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong is now serving life in prison. She reportedly has cancer and has been given only a few years to live.
In her history, you've seen that she held the fate of people's lives in her hands in the past. And now all of a sudden, she's on the other end of that spectrum, and someone else holds her fate. And so it's sort of ironic how the whole thing ended.
It's little consolation to the family of Brian Wells, which fights to clear his name.
To this day, Brian's family believes he had absolutely nothing to do with this, that he was an innocent victim. It's a story that never ends. I mean, it never ends.